What happened to you, man?
What are you talking about?
You let the money and the fame get to you, man. It used to be about the music.
What fame, what money? I barely have 500 subscribers.
Oh, I know. I was just practicing. But you want to know who should be doing this album review?
And that's where I stop you. Hello one, hello all, it is the dreamiest ghost of them all, Caspa in the flesh, and it's time for a review of George Clanton. Oh rap, ayah. George Clanton is a singer, songwriter, producer, and this is his latest album. I first heard about George a while back with his album Slide, which I thought was good. I thought maybe not one of my favorites of that year, but definitely an album that I enjoyed. I did feel there was a bit of shortcomings there when it came to the lyrics, when it came to some production choices, when it came to the singing. But on here, I feel George has been perfecting, has been sharpening his craft, and it definitely shows here. Because Slide was a very psychedelic, nostalgic experience, and I feel that carries on to this album, except it's more bolder this time around. I would say it's more adventurous this time around, and there are moments here where things are sharpened up. I think the singing is better on here. There are some mixing flaws here and there, but overall, I do think the production is definitely more exciting here. Not to say it wasn't exciting on the last one, but I feel there's definitely a more push sonically here. And while the other album borrowed from shoegaze mostly, I think this album is taking Chillwave and leaning it more in the synth pop direction. So I'm getting elements of Depeche Mode, elements of Pet Shop Boys, elements of Tears for Fears, especially with the vocals too. I feel the bold, very eccentric vocals, definitely very Tears for Fears, and I may be the only one that thinks that. However, I can't help but notice there could also be a Depeche Mode influence as well, but I don't know. For some reason, I'm getting more Tears for Fears. Just the way the vocals soar with such depth to them. It's very Tears for Fears in my opinion. And as far as Chillwave goes, I do feel it's on its deathbed, but I think George is definitely breathing life back into the genre with this one. With infectious melodies, great grooves, more color this time around, definitely more textures, and definitely better songwriting here this time around. I think the songwriting, while it may be scant on a few tracks, is definitely more compelling here. I feel he's going more towards more conceptual and non-basic directions. Not to say that Love is basic, it's not, but not only is he branching out to new subjects, but he's also adding more to those subjects as well. As far as instruments go here, you're getting some whimsical flutes, like on the track You Hold the Key, I Found It, and some beautiful eccentric guitar work from Neji Jemi. And I must say, coalescing these instruments with the synthetic production is definitely a work of art, definitely a thing of beauty, and I absolutely love it. It's very engaging, it's very orgasmic, it's very intoxicating, and I'm probably going to use those words again because they are. Blue. And it sounds so beautiful. It sounds so dreamy. Like there are moments here where the instrumentation, it's very decadent. I do feel that whenever I'm listening to this, I feel like I'm in a dream. Like this album is very ethereal and very fuzzy too. And maybe fuzzy, it's very hazy. You definitely feel like this is a dream sequence moment and I am just living in it. Like this album is nostalgic, ethereal bliss, which is immensely hypnotic, very linear too. And it's like I'm just moving. You are just moving forward. And to be honest, I feel that's the message as well. There is definitely the spirit of progression on here, whether it be the production and also the message coalescing with it. And I do wish the message was a little more clear, but that's the thing with dreams. Whenever you dream something, you are just experiencing the visions, you are experiencing the feeling, the experience, and you're trying to grab to the message, and you're trying to gain a message from it, but the message isn't exactly clear, and I think that's purposely done, but you definitely get a hint of what this album is going for. To me, I feel like this album is about maturity and growth. Everything I Want has this larger than life, layers of droning bass, and it's very dark, casting over these bright synth leads, which are very blissful. It has the presence of a Cure song, but the density and thickness of a Death's Dynamic Shroud song over these boom bap style rhythms. It's intense, and a fantastic way to kick off the album. The song Justify Your Life has these rays of sonic tones and ethereal chords, blaring synths, and wintry synths just glimmering over this thing. With these Pet Shop Boys-esque vocals and woozy keys, there's also a ringing alarm clock on here that definitely sounds like it's straight out of the early 90s, which I feel definitely complements the nostalgia factor that we've known Clanton to go for. And the leads on the hook are so passionate, they're so bold, they're so expressive. You got to take a lead and start all over. Justify your life. Punching Down has these glistening chords, vibrant synth bass just bubbling across the track, with these ghostly backing vocals, which sounds like a George Clanton sample. It sounds like he put a sample into his own song, which honestly I feel is very creative and tastefully done. And what sounds like throbbing siren keys, like an emergency just went off and the siren's going off. But the track is so friggin' entrancing. It's like I'm going into like a nocturnal vortex with psychedelic colors, and I love the synth horns on the back end, transitioning smoothly into I've Been Young. And I love the contrast of the vocals from the verse to the hook. I love how bright and glimmering the production is. I love how, again, we get the contrast, and I feel that happens a lot here, or a few times on here, where we get that contrast of sonic variety. You are getting something blissful and light, but also there's a dark tone going on to the production as well. So it's kind of like a dream, but also there's darkness to the dream, so it's kind of, I guess, a tint of nightmare, just a tint. I love how murky the keys are. I love how hazy the production sounds. And I know it's electronic, but I cannot deny my love for the sonic hand percussion that's on here. It sounds great, and we get these wah-wah guitars from Neji. And this track is so linear and very much the most intoxicating and I would say well-written track on this album. So far we're getting ear candy that's so beautiful, it's so engaging, and so layered with euphoric, addictive, sonic variety. And there are some low points here, but it's not enough to derail my enjoyment of this album. And I do enjoy the inclusion of the woodwinds on the track, and I do enjoy the inclusion of the woodwinds on here. They sound whimsical, they sound very tribal, but yet they sound eerie at the same time over this atmospheric display of chillwave production. But I do find the blaring, droning melodies kind of tedious, kind of grating, and I do get ear fatigue after listening to it for quite a while. I do love the whiny sci-fi synths that are put in here. I do wish George had more presence though, vocally on here, and there was a little more writing here. It kind of comes off as an interlude, but I wouldn't say it's a bad interlude, but not one of my favorite tracks on the album. We then get the two-header, Vapor King, SubReal. Pretty much the issue I have with this is more towards, I feel Vapor King comes off more as an interlude than it does an actual track, and how George's vocals are buried in the mix here. And I do think the pacing could have been better. I think the pacing is a bit odd on this one, but I do enjoy the energetic other half of this, which is SubReal, which is probably the most energetic track on this album, with these very exuberant rhythms, with these whining synths. And I love how the track just builds in a linear fashion and becomes more bright and more colorful as the production rolls on, as the track rolls on. Now, while I do think FUML has some catchy moments on here, like the melodies, like the refrains, I think the production does come off a little scant. Normally it's the vocals that are getting the spotlight, but I feel in this type of genre, you really need the two to coexist without outshining the other. And on top of that too, I'm not really receiving that strong of a vocal presence from George on here, unfortunately. But the title track though, I think is great. I love how ascending it is, particularly with the vocal samples and how they intricately place each other into the mix. And it just coalesces into this gratifying mantra of bliss. Just transitioning into this very psychedelic, intoxicating passage with a nice warm bass line, and I love how kaleidoscopic this track is. The closer, while not bad, featuring Hatchie, I do wish there was more in terms of the writing here. It definitely comes off as more of a roll credits moment, but then again, it does also come off more as a interlude or an outro instead of a closer. I wish that somehow it wrapped up the message it was trying to convey. But I think melodically, this is consistently stronger. I do feel the writing has improved on here. I mean, sure, I do wish the vocals had more presence at some points, but there are moments where he has stepped it up to that as well. But I do feel this album has more working for it than against it. And as far as the subject matter goes, we only get like one love song, I would say, on here. Where the opener, he finds himself in the midst of having everything he ever wanted. He just wants that one love interest that he is just longing for. Honestly, obsessively, and honestly kind of concerning as well. Like, are you okay, George? Are you okay? You could talk to me, buddy. I am here for you. The song Justify Your Life is about taking a chance, about stopping, about starting over in order to prevail, in order to make a risk, and also to continue, to add a meaning to your life. The song Punching Down is definitely a song I'm trying to wrap my head around. To me, I feel it could go both ways. Maybe the tables have turned here and he is talking to someone who has been absolute trash and always punching down, and now asking how it feels to be in the shoes of someone marginalized. Like, it's very cryptic. But then we get the song I've Been Young, where he is talking about his past mistakes, grudges he's held, and how he feels like it's time to move on. He feels it's time to just grow, and how he's not too young, and he's realizing the errors of his ways, his regretful past. So it's very possible that he could be talking about the maybe reflection of who he was in the past on Punching Down. It's very, like I said before, with this being so dreamy of an album, this album's like a dream, so you're trying to grasp on to the concept of what's given to you, the message of what's given to you, but you're not exactly sure. And it's very much open for interpretation, but due to the lyrics here, it's pretty much how I'm receiving it. It's very mind-bending. It's very much an album that I probably would have to go back to again in order to grasp what's going on here. But again, it's open for interpretation. It's open for opinion. And this is the place for opinions. But I will say, while the message here is cryptic, I definitely enjoy mostly how this album, songwriting wise, is so compelling and so much of an album that is forward thinking, even if the message isn't exactly clear sometimes, but the production is also working in its favor as well. And there's also the title track, which I said is great, about life continuing, about being prosperous, about making the best of it and finding meaning and just making the best of your existence. And there's also the title track, which I said is great, about life continuing, about being prosperous, about making the best of it and finding meaning and just making the best of your existence. And yeah, that's pretty much what I'm getting from this album, and again, I'm loving it. I'm loving the writing on this album. I think that has stepped up. I'm loving the production on this album. While it wasn't bad on the last one, I think there are things that have improved it as well. I think the majority of the vocals have gotten better. And yeah, this is just a step up. This is an upgrade from Slide. I felt this. I felt the experience. I love the dreamy, atmospheric production that's on here. And I felt something. I felt something with this. And I'm feeling a 4 black hearts out of this. 4 black hearts out of 5 on this. But hey, my opinion. If you've given this album a listen, what did you think of it? Did you love it? Did you hate it? And why? And that's it. Caspa, Gothic Ghost, George Clanton, Oh Rap I Yaw. Till we meet again.